Have you ever thought about times when you feel disappointed after eating? It's a concept that we don't often bring up, but today I want to chat about it and how it might relate to your relationship with food.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi, I'm Rachel Fine. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist here to help dancers just like you learn how to fuel their bodies in the most supportive way possible. Today, I want to talk about food disappointment, why it's important for dancers to understand this experience as being part of the journey of rebuilding our relationships with food and understanding how avoiding food disappointment is not necessarily the goal, but rather making space for the experience and understanding how we can lean into it a bit more productively. So I'm sure we've all been there, those experiences where you might be extremely excited to eat something, but left with this overwhelming feeling of disappointment, maybe even with this feeling of, was it even worth it? And this is what I want to hone in on today, because food disappointment, it's pretty straightforward. You eat something, it didn't go as planned. Whether that's a homemade dish or something that you've ordered at a restaurant, food disappointment, for lack of a better phrase, is super annoying because it can feel like an entire eating opportunity has unfortunately been wasted. But I really want you to challenge this mindset, because for dancers who experience disordered eating or regimented restrictive food rules, food disappointment often amplifies. And this is because deprivation, being from restrictive food rules or even food insecurity, greatly increases the reward response that we get from eating. In these instances, every eating opportunity becomes a very treasured moment. And the pressure to make every eating opportunity perfect or accessible feels amplified, making the experience of food disappointment that much scarier. And similar to much of the work we do when navigating challenges of our body image or of our fueling goals, it's a bit of a daunting task to expect a total elimination or avoidance of feelings of disappointment after eating. Simply put, complete avoidance of a disappointing experience around food is not a realistic goal. In fact, it's arguably a very normal experience that is bound to happen at some point. And trying to avoid instances of food disappointment can actually exacerbate experiences of rigidity in your meal plans and even pickiness around food. So how can we begin to navigate food disappointment in a more productive way to help us enter any food experience with a more open mind? Let's talk about a few strategies. First and foremost, it comes back to our relationships with food. As I mentioned earlier, you're likely to feel more disappointed if your baseline eating routine is already limited or restricted. Spoiler, clean eating lifestyles are a huge culprit of this. That tendency to always fixate on whole, minimally processed foods and even food quality can veer us from a more inclusive approach to a very exclusive approach, causing them to limit or completely avoid any foods deemed not acceptable and a quote unhealthy or less clean. Many options, by the way, which happen to be very practical for dancers. In these instances, dancers often make much of their food decisions around food rules instead of around food preferences or what is accessible to them, further driving experiences of food guilt if and when those options are not necessarily around. Now, while there is absolutely nothing wrong with utilizing nutrition and nutrient density in your mealtime decisions, we don't want these factors being the sole contributor to every food decision we make. And this is where the Healthy Dancer Food Flexibility algorithm comes into play with building a supportive relationship with food. I'll share a link in the notes so you can refresh your memory on it. So what about the moment? What about the moment when you do feel disappointed after eating? How can we navigate this? Because oftentimes it leaves us feeling unsatisfied after our meals. And for many dancers, especially going back to those dancers who might be coming from a restrictive place, that lack of satisfaction can often spiral into behaviors like feeling a bit more out of control around their food choices. So first and foremost, just understand the normalcy of this experience, that it is bound to happen. Make space for that. Make space for the mere concept that food disappointment is not necessarily something we have to avoid. Be proud of yourself. For many of you, this experience might have come from trying a new food or ordering a new dish. If that's something that is already challenging for you, I want you to first pat yourself on the back, because trying new foods is part of the process of increasing food variety in your daily dancer fuel plan. If you're starting to feel disappointed while you're eating, you'll want to evaluate whether or not you should be continuing to eat this food or not. So realize that under eating a meal or skipping a meal entirely because you are feeling disappointed by it could lead you to challenges later on, especially if there isn't an alternative option for you right now. Remember, you do need to nourish your body with the foods that are accessible to you at this moment. And that might mean eating a meal that doesn't necessarily leave you feeling 100% satisfied. Now, if you can access an alternative, that's cool. Go for it. But if not, evaluate an amount of food that still leaves you feeling energized and fueled. You can pause and reflect. What didn't meet your expectations? Was it the flavors of the dish? Was it how the dish was paired or how it was presented? We can utilize this as a learning experience. You might understand how to tailor the dish in the future or just try something completely different when the next opportunity comes around. Always consider your expectations. Are they realistic? I often say this with quick meals and convenient snacks. It's in these instances that the most satisfying experience might not necessarily be accessible. Common when dancers are traveling to intensives or touring or even traveling to competitions. Remember, not every dish, not every eating experience can be a culinary masterpiece, and that's okay too. You can reframe your thoughts here. Can you construct any neutral, maybe even positive thoughts from the experience? I somewhat helped you do this earlier with flipping the perspective and giving yourself a pat on the back for trying something new. If that's too difficult, what about a more neutral approach? Think about the functionality of the meal. It might have been disappointing, but did it provide your body with the energizing carbohydrates, the protein, the fats that your body can now utilize to support energy and muscle recovery? Working to adjust your mindset can significantly impact how you perceive your meals, preventing the entire experience from being overshadowed by that food disappointment. Maybe you were with friends, maybe it was a fun social time. Sure, the meal might have been disappointing, but if it was a fun event with friends, then it wasn't all disappointing. And finally, we can use the experience of food disappointment as part of building the Healthy Dancer body of evidence. So now that you moved through the moment itself, start the opportunity of exploration. Consider the factors that led to the disappointment. If it was a homemade meal, can you switch up the ingredients to try it in another way next time? If it was at a restaurant, maybe you can pocket the experience and remember how to tailor the dish differently in the future. Remember, dealing with food disappointment is a universal experience. Using the disappointment not as a reason to avoid the eating experience or avoid the meal next time, but rather as a learning opportunity is a great starting point. Eventually, we want our eating experiences to be practical and realistic, and this doesn't only mean the foods that we are eating, but how we are experiencing those foods in of themselves. Overall, this helps to lessen the pressure between you and your meals. If you're coming from a restrictive place, then ensuring nutritional adequacy is going to be an important first step. And that's where working alongside a registered dietitian nutritionist is incredibly encouraged. This is so that our eating experiences can feel supportive rather than when you are experiencing that pressure to make every meal and snack perfect. Remember, you have multiple opportunities to eat every single day. That gives you so many opportunities to build those satisfying meals and snacks. And of course, while still having room for experiences that might feel more disappointing and as opportunities to build the healthy dancer body of evidence so that you can retry those experiences again in the future, perhaps through different ways. If you want more support, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My program, The Healthy Dancer, dives into this topic and more through the membership program where I work with dancers in both one-on-one and group settings. You can gain all of this information on my blog at dancenutrition.com and even enjoy a free 7-day trial. No commitment necessary, just strategy to help you build those supportive meals and snacks. Until then, I'll talk to you soon.